Welcome back to the deep dive. This time we're going all the way back to ancient Rome
Oh, wow.
in 64 AD,
Okay.
a time of emperors and gladiators, but also a time of
Yeah.
great upheaval.
Mm.
You probably know the story. Rome engulfed in flames,
Right.
the infamous Emperor Nero.
Yeah.
But have you ever wondered how much of that story is actually true?
Right.
Well, you've sent us a podcast episode
Okay.
featuring an interview with a Professor Jenna Claus.
Oh, yeah.
She's an expert on this period.
Okay.
And we're going to use her insights to separate fact from fiction.
Wonderful.
So Professor Claus,
Yeah.
she is a leading scholar on the Great Fire of Rome.
She is.
And she brings a fresh perspective to this often sensationalized event.
Right.
What's fascinating is how she challenges some of the long-held assumptions about the
Yes.
fire,
Mhm.
including its cause,
Okay.
and Nero's role in it.
Yeah.
So let's start by setting the scene.
Okay.
Imagine Rome in 64 AD, a bustling metropolis of over 1 million people.
Wow.
A city built largely of wood
Ah,
with narrow, winding streets.
I see.
Now picture this. A fire breaks out in the market stalls
Yeah.
of the Circus Maximus.
Right in the heart of the city.
It's July.
Oh, wow.
The winds are strong, and the
Oh.
flames quickly spread,
Oh, no.
engulfing the city in a fiery inferno.
So the Circus Maximus, the heart of Roman entertainment, was essentially a tinderbox, waiting to ignite, and with limited firefighting capabilities,
Yeah.
relying mainly on bucket brigades,
Right.
the fire was almost unstoppable.
Professor Claus really paints a vivid picture of the chaos and devastation.
She does.
The fire raged for 6 days,
Wow.
then briefly subsided, only to reignite
Oh, my God.
for another 3.
Oh, wow.
By the time it was finally extinguished,
Right.
vast swaths of the city lay in ruins.
It's staggering to think about the scale of the destruction.
is.
We're talking about entire neighborhoods reduced to ash. Iconic landmarks like the Palatine Hill and numerous temples
Yeah.
destroyed,
Yeah.
not to mention the countless homes and businesses lost.
And of course, there's the human cost.
Right.
Thousands were left homeless.
Yeah.
Many perished in the flames.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't just a disaster.
No.
It was a trauma
Right.
that deeply scarred the Roman psyche.
Professor Claus emphasizes that the fire consumed not only buildings,
Right.
but also irreplaceable historical records and literary works, leaving a gap in our understanding of Roman history.
The burning question, of course, is what caused this catastrophic fire?
Yeah.
Was it an accident
Mm-hmm.
or a deliberate act?
There have always been multiple theories.
Right.
And even today,
Yeah.
we can't say for certain.
Right.
Professor Claus, however, leans towards the theory of an accidental fire,
Okay.
citing the city's highly flammable construction and the strong winds as major contributing factors.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Rome was practically built for a fire to happen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Professor Claus argues that an accidental fire was almost inevitable given the city's conditions.
Right.
But of course, there's the other side of the story,
Mhm.
the accusations leveled at Emperor Nero.
Ah, Nero. He was at his seaside villa
Yeah.
when the fire broke out, wasn't he?
Yes, and that fact alone fueled rumors of his involvement.
Okay.
Some whispered that he'd ordered the fire
Really?
to clear space for his extravagant Domus Aurea,
Okay.
his golden palace.
Wow.
Others even claimed he delighted in the spectacle,
Oh,
composing
no.
poetry and music as the city burned.
That's where we get the infamous image of Nero fiddling while Rome burned.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
It's such a powerful image of a leader detached from the suffering of his people.
Right.
But is there any truth to it?
Well, as Professor Claus points out,
Yeah.
it's important to separate the myth from the reality.
Right.
Nero likely played the kithara,
Okay.
a type of lyre,
Yeah.
not a fiddle. And while there are accounts of him singing about the fall of Troy as the fire raged,
Really?
there's no concrete evidence that he actually orchestrated it.
So maybe Nero was more of a convenient scapegoat.
That's a very real possibility.
Okay.
Remember, Nero was already a controversial figure, unpopular with the Senate,
Right.
and known for his ruthlessness.
Yeah.
The fire provided his enemies with a perfect opportunity to
Yeah.
discredit him further.
And that's where the story takes an even darker turn.
Right?
Nero, desperate to deflect blame,
Yes.
chose to scapegoat the Christians,
Oh, wow.
a relatively new
Right.
and marginalized religious group in Rome.
This act of scapegoating had tragic consequences.
It did.
Nero accused the Christians of arson and unleashed a wave of brutal persecution,
Right.
with many Christians subjected to horrific public executions.
Professor Claus even draws a connection between these events and the site of the present-day St. Peter's Basilica, believed to be built over the location where many early Christians were martyred.
It's a chilling reminder of how easily fear and political opportunism can lead to the persecution of minority groups.
It's hard to imagine the terror and despair those early Christians must have felt.
It is.
So let's shift gears for a moment
Okay.
and talk about the aftermath of the fire.
Right.
We know Nero implemented
Yes.
some significant urban planning reforms.
He did.
What did those reforms look like?
Well, the fire, while a tragedy,
Right.
presented Nero with an opportunity to reshape Rome,
Okay.
according to his vision.
Mm-hmm.
He introduced wider, straighter streets,
Okay.
fire breaks between buildings,
Right.
and an improved water supply system.
Those sound like pretty sensible changes,
They were.
especially considering what had just happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nero also mandated the use of fire-resistant materials, like brick and stone in new construction,
Right.
a stark contrast to the predominantly wooden structures that had made Rome so vulnerable to fire.
So in a way, the fire, however devastating,
Yeah.
spurred some positive changes in the city's infrastructure.
Yeah.
Did these reforms have a lasting impact
Yep.
on Roman urban design?
Nero's building codes,
Okay.
while initially met with resistance from some,
Right.
became a model for future Roman emperors, and even influenced urban planning in other parts of the empire.
It's fascinating how a disaster can sometimes lead to innovation and progress.
It's a reminder that even in the face of destruction,
Right.
there's often an opportunity for renewal. And while Nero initiated these reforms,
All right.
it's important to remember that they were largely completed under the Flavian dynasty,
Okay.
who succeeded him after his death.
The Flavians,
Yeah.
especially Vespasian and his son Titus,
Right.
are known for their ambitious building projects,
They are.
like the Colosseum.
Exactly. And they cleverly used the fire to their advantage,
Right.
contrasting their public-minded rule with Nero's perceived extravagance.
Okay.
The Colosseum, for example.
Yeah.
A symbol of Flavian power and generosity, was built right over Nero's artificial lake,
Wow.
a feature of his much criticized Domus Aurea.
Sounds like they were very strategic.
They were masters of public image.
Yeah.
They recognized the need to restore public morale
Right.
after the trauma of the fire. And Nero's increasingly erratic rule,
Yeah.
their building projects were not just about grandeur,
Right.
but about demonstrating their commitment to rebuilding Rome and caring for its citizens.
Okay, let's go back to Nero for a moment.
Okay.
We know that just a year after the fire, a major conspiracy arose to assassinate him.
Right.
Could this have been a direct consequence of the fire?
It's certainly possible.
And the growing discontent with his rule.
The fire, coupled with Nero's heavy taxation
Right.
to fund the rebuilding efforts,
Yeah.
likely fueled resentment among both the Roman elite and the common people.
Right.
And remember, Nero had already alienated much of the Senate with his autocratic tendencies and ruthless purges.
So this conspiracy,
Right.
known as the Pisonian conspiracy,
Yeah.
involved a whole network of senators,
Right.
equestrians,
Yeah.
and even some of Nero's own guards.
Wow.
Who were these equestrians?
Equestrians were a wealthy class
Okay.
in Roman society,
Mhm.
just below the senators in rank.
Okay.
They held important positions in the military and administration.
Yeah.
Their involvement in the conspiracy suggests that opposition to Nero
Right.
extended beyond the Senate
Right.
and had seeped into other powerful sectors of Roman society.
Yeah.
Their motivations likely varied,
Right.
but many were probably disillusioned by Nero's perceived tyranny and concerned about his increasingly erratic behavior.
The plot was ultimately uncovered,
It was.
leading to a wave of executions.
Right.
Even the philosopher Seneca.
Yeah.
Nero's former tutor
Right.
was implicated.
He was.
How did Seneca, known for his wisdom and stoicism,
Right.
get caught up in this web of intrigue?
Seneca's involvement in the Pisonian conspiracy is a complex and debated topic. While some historians believe he actively participated in the plot, others argue he was more of a passive sympathizer, aware of the conspiracy, but not directly involved in its planning.
You mentioned earlier that Seneca had been trying to distance himself from Nero even before the fire.
Yes. And there's a fascinating connection between The Great Fire of Rome,
Okay.
and one of Seneca's letters,
Okay.
Epistolae Moralis 91.
Okay.
This letter, written shortly after a major fire in Lyon, the capital of Roman Gaul, explores themes of loss, resilience, and the impermanence of life.
Was Seneca using the fire in Lyon as a metaphor?
That's a theory some scholars have put forward. While Seneca never explicitly mentions Rome or Nero in this letter, he does write about the destruction of a great city by fire, using it as an occasion to reflect on the importance of stoic virtue in the face of adversity.
It's almost like he's sending a coded message.
Exactly.
Addressing the situation in Rome without directly naming names.
It would have been dangerous for Seneca to openly criticize Nero, given the emperor's notorious sensitivity to any perceived dissent.
Yeah.
The letter allows him to express his philosophical ideas about leadership and responsibility in a more veiled and ambiguous way.
This letter provides a unique perspective on the fire and its aftermath.
Yeah.
It shifts the focus away from the political intrigue and towards the human experience of loss and resilience.
It's a powerful reminder that even amidst tragedy, there are profound lessons to be learned about the nature of life, our own mortality, and the importance of facing adversity with courage and wisdom.
Seneca's insights are truly timeless. Yeah. But before we get too philosophical, circle back to the myth of Nero, fiddling while Rome burned.
Yeah.
This image has persisted for centuries.
It has.
But, as we've discussed, it's not entirely accurate.
Yeah.
Why do you think this particular story has resonated so strongly throughout history?
It's a potent symbol, isn't it?
It is.
The image of a leader indifferent to the suffering of his people, more concerned with his own artistic pursuits than with their well-being. It taps into a deep-seated fear we all have, the fear of those in power failing to act, or worse, actively exacerbating a crisis.
And the fact that Nero was already viewed as a tyrant. Only amplified that image.
Exactly.
It's like the perfect villain narrative.
It plays into our need to simplify complex events, to assign blame, and to find a clear antagonist. The story of Nero fiddling provides that simple narrative. It's easy to grasp, easy to remember, and it reinforces our existing beliefs about power and corruption.
But as we've seen, the reality is much more nuanced.
It is.
Nero may have been a flawed leader. But he wasn't the one-dimensional villain he's often portrayed to be.
And it's important to remember that history is often written by the victors. The Flavians, who succeeded Nero, had a vested interest in portraying him in a negative light to legitimize their own rule.
So the myth of Nero fiddling serves as a cautionary tale.
It does.
On multiple levels. It reminds us to be wary of simplistic narratives, to question the sources of our information, and to recognize the ways in which history can be manipulated to serve political agendas.
It also challenges us to think critically about leadership, about what it means to be a responsible leader, especially in times of crisis.
And on that note, let's bring it back to the present. Professor Claus argues that an accidental fire was almost inevitable in a city like Rome. It makes you wonder, are there fires waiting to happen in our own world today?
That's a powerful question to consider.
What vulnerabilities are we ignoring?
We live in a world of increasing complexity and interconnectedness.
We do.
A world facing unprecedented challenges, from climate change to political instability. Perhaps the Great Fire of Rome, beyond its historical significance, offers us a valuable lesson in foresight and preparedness.
It reminds us that even the most powerful empires are vulnerable to disaster. And that complacency can have devastating consequences.
It also underscores the importance of responsible leadership.
It does.
Of leaders who are willing to listen to experts, to make difficult choices, and to prioritize the well-being of their people above all else.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive. We've explored the events of the Great Fire of Rome. Sifted through the myths and realities surrounding Emperor Nero, and delved into the complexities of leadership and responsibility.
We have.
We've also seen how a single event can have a ripple effect throughout history, shaping not just the physical landscape of a city, but also our understanding of the past and the lessons we draw from it. So to wrap things up, What's the one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember from this deep dive?
I think it's the importance of questioning narratives, of looking beyond the surface to understand the complexities of history and the human stories that lie beneath. The Great Fire of Rome is a reminder that history is not a static collection of facts, but a living, breathing tapestry that continues to shape our world today.
Well said.
Thank you.
And to our listener, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, we encourage you to explore further.
Yes.
Read Professor Claus's work.
Right.
Delve into the primary sources. And perhaps even visit the archaeological sites that bear witness to this pivotal moment in history. You might be surprised by what you discover.
You might.
That's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.